Welcome to Shop Night Live in Canterbury, New Hampshire. Some of you might remember back when, I think it was the Shop Night Live we did about finding backyard treasure. And we cut that big slab, that big ash tree into slabs. And then, I think it was at the end of that same one, you'll have to correct me, I had a big piece of firewood. What I was doing was I was cutting up an old maple tree that was right outside the shop here that had been laying on the ground for almost a couple years. A big limb, and it was down over the hill, and I didn't see it, and I finally said, oh, I gotta do it. Well, by the time I got to it, it was spalted beautifully, but actually too beautifully, because it was beyond, a lot of it had a little too much rot or punkiness in it. You got to catch it just right. If it sits on the ground too long, that spalted material turns into firewood because it gets too soft and crumbly. But I did, while I was cutting that up, unfortunately for firewood, I came across this one piece where the tree had branched, where there's a crotch section of wood, and I thought, man, that could be awesome. And it felt solid. It was harder. It didn't really decay. And so I brought it in that night on the Finding Backyard Treasure, or Treasure in Your Firewood Pile, right? And I resawed it. Some of you might remember. And this is what the piece I had left at the end. But I got a whole bunch of cuttings from this. And this is one of them. Check that out. So I made a lot like that, and they were a good full inch thick. Now, look how warped out. So it was fairly dry, but it was still not dry. So I brought it in, and after I cut it up into all those pieces, I rested it with air all around. That was probably 6 months ago. It is good and dry, and I thought, man, this is a great night to do a finished piece with these, because this type of material is ideal for making serving boards, for charcuterie boards, for meats and cheeses, a nice little serving impressive display. Now this piece, they didn't all stay very flat because you've got a lot of windy wood grain here anyway. You can kind of see where one tree branch went this way and the other was starting out this way. So this piece wobbles a lot. I mean, you can look how much that's warped just from being over there. So some of them have a little check in it, but quite a few of them are really nice. And if it has a lot of warp, I decided if I press down on one side, I can actually take a cut and get like an angular cut. Maybe I only get half of it, but you can still make an interesting serving board. There's no set rule how big it needs to be. So what I did was, I didn't use this one, I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to get out two that I have already thicknessed down. So I flattened one side. This piece was a really wobbly one, but it had some nice marbling, spalted figure. That's that marbling that happens when it's on the ground. It's like a fungus gets up into the wood and it tracks around, interestingly, and creates that marbled surface. So this is good and hard. It's a little softer than regular hard maple because of the spalted nature of it, but it's not punky. There's one or two little spots like right here. I'll show you. You can poke the board almost like you're testing for termites, but watch what happens. Like I know this little area right here. You hear it? Watch. I poke, it's barely going in, and then really goes in there easily. So that's kind of gone, and that's what I'm telling you about. When it gets to that point, you kind of lost it. But the rest of it is good and hard. So this is an awesome piece too. And I already cut off some of the waste stuff so that it could fit through my planer. My planer's only 12 inches wide, and it's big enough the way it is. So ideal woods for this are just highly figured, you know, beautiful wood. You don't need large pieces. So down at Highland Hardwoods, or our friendly neighbor Goose Bay Lumber here in Chichester, a lot of them have short bins. So if you don't live around here, check out if your lumberyard has shorts. So they'll have smaller pieces, and quite often they're sold at a discount. So you can get some amazing material for these charcuterie boards or cheese boards in that area. Now you can also get it the way I did. You can get it from trees that have fallen down that have amazing figure, or a tree that's gone down near the side of the road. You have a chainsaw and you're opportunist, you could chunk out a nice piece. Excuse me. You could try to get burls, crotches, whatever. There's so much opportunity. You got to wait longer for it to dry that way. So to get it at a Goose Bay or your nearest wood dealer or Highland Hardwoods, that'll save you time, you know. So, and you'll be able to work it right away. Now, I dress these down to right about 3/4 of an inch. I just flatten one side, and then the other, I went through the planer to 3/4 of an inch. And then I cleaned it up. I had some planer marks on there, so you could just sand it all the way down. I planed it up. I gave it a few swipes with the old plane, like I like to do. What's interesting about this is the maple, since it's spalted, it actually is a little friendlier to hand tools. So it just planes beautifully, even though it's figured. That's it. Now you're ready to lay out and cut your board out. I would recommend getting material large enough so there's no glue ups. You could glue up strips if you want to do that. But to me, this is a fast, big bang for your buck project. If you have beautiful material, you can get amazing, strong, potent results without a ton of work. And so much of it is showcasing a beautiful board. So, you know, all that stuff you've been saving, and you think, I can't throw that away. That's going to be good for something someday. Like I have a few pieces up in the attic.
A few.
a lot of those. What?
Only a few.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of those pieces are actually ideal for this type of project. If you're in a pinch for a nice gift for someone, man, you could show up with a bottle of wine to someone's house for a nice Italian dinner. Or if you show up with a charcuterie board, I am horrible, this charcuterie board, they will never forget it, right? You're going to drink a bottle of wine and it's gone. But this will be a memory that'll be cherished every time they serve the antipasta. All right, so let's get started. I already kind of made very light pencil marks on this, so I wouldn't have to do all the figuring. But this is fun, because you get to look at the board and you can make your decisions. Now, I've seen them shaped all kinds of ways. I like the kind that are kind of random, because especially with a gorgeous piece of material like this, make it look natural. So some I've seen are very angular. Like you could just make these angular cuts and have it like a trapezoid, almost like it is here. Like you could just make a line like that. I prefer to have some curved lines. So I'm thinking this smaller one will be like a cheese board, and I would have a line sort of like, I'll start up here and sweep out this way. I've got a little check here, so I'm going to come inside that. And I'm not making super even lines here because I'm going to just let it flow when I'm on the bandsaw. I may not even stay exactly on that line, but I don't care. And then down this end, I've got a check coming up here. And this is kind of a weird little line there. So I'm going to be coming across here. The check is about ending right there. So I think I'm going to make a little curvy-durvy there, and then come down in here. There's a little check here. I don't care if I'm leaving some of it. It's kind of an interesting feature to have some wildness left on the piece. So some of them have like these little bark inclusions on the surface that I don't even mind. So here's a little punky spot. So I'm going to come inside that and like something like this. All right, that one's good. This one, I love this figure. I mean, this has like, this is near that crotch area. So, crotch area. I should have said that differently.
I think we can handle it.
This has some really wild figure. It's got these spalted lines here. And look, it has, this is a little inclusion. This is like a little, that's hard enough. I'm leaving it in there. And that little thing, I don't mind that either. This is the better face. There's just more activity going on here. So I'm going to just, I already kind of had this line. So I'm going to play off of that line and soften the curve a little bit. This will just be kind of a big soft arc over here. This, just have fun. I mean, do whatever you want. There's no rule here. I'm just showing you what I'm doing. And then I'm going to sweep in here again to miss this check. And then here, I'm going to do like a little reverse curve here. So I'm going to come out as far as I can, then come back in and back out. And up here, I've got this punky, look, I can stick the pencil right in. And I get this hole here. So rather than including those, I'm going to just sweep across. That's a little punky there. But it runs out. So I'm going to sweep across here. Something like that. All right, that's it. Now we get to have some fun. Let's go to the bandsaw and we'll cut these out. I'm going to let it just ride, and I've got a 3/4 inch blade on here on this bandsaw, and I recently adjusted. Every now and then the guides get out of whack, so I just recently adjusted those when I changed the bearing and adjusted the ones on the small. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Now, one of the things I've mentioned before is this is a freehand cut on a bandsaw. Like, the blade is just that wide. You don't really have a fence to lean against to get a straight cut. You don't really want it because you want that freedom. But you can use the back of the blade. Like, once I get past the teeth, that blade is kind of a solid back it's moving, but it doesn't hurt, to kind of rest the already cut material against it to give you a little more guidance to flow with the cut a little bit more. So that's all I'm going to do, is just have some fun, and where I can do that, I'm going to lean on that blade. Here we go. Sorry, I'm going to do this one too. After you've cut these, you can reevaluate. Like, look at the shape and say, something about that doesn't feel right. I kind of like that one. That feels cool. It's got some nice curves. This one's all right. I like everything except the way this is right here. So I think I'm going to come in more here. I don't like the way that goes back. So this is when you can just make a little refining line. And I'm just going to have it come in and go out almost like this side. Like this will have the cheeses and the crackers on, and this will be more the handle end. So let me fix that. I like that better. So, pretty fun. I mean, it's just free form, no rules. If you prefer linear, go with linear. I love the rigidity of that blade because it's at higher tension because of the resaw capacity. It's awesome for this type of longer curve. I'll show you why that's important, because cleaning up is a lot easier if your curves are fairly smooth, okay? So, what I do is, I've got the bandsaw mark here, and for these outside curves, I take a block plane, and the grain is running across here. So I'm going to start at the top and go down, and then I'll come this way and go down. Now, when I first started out, I would belt sand this stuff. And you can do that too. You can get kind of good with a belt sander. If you like a disc sander, you can move it. But the important thing I'm trying to do is a smooth curve. And sometimes that's hard to do with other machines. Whatever it works for you, but I just find this is so fast.
Tom, there's some discussion about this being a fungus, that spalted wood is a fungus, and that
Yes.
there's fumes and whatnot that we're breathing.
There's a fungus among us. Yeah, but it's dry, so it's pretty much dead at this point. If it's wet and you just cut it down and you're breathing like all that wet stuff, that's a concern. But I've read things where when it's dry, it's not an issue. Someone could correct me on that if I'm wrong. But we also have a lot of dust collection here, so I couldn't even smell it. Now, getting the end grain here, I need to smooth that out. I'm going to use the spoke shave. Well, I made that a little tighter. I've got a rounded spoke shave, but I prefer, in this case, just to file it quickly. I'm just taking a little bit of the bumps off. I just want to fare that smooth because we're going to run a router on there to get a slight radius in each direction. All right, then this side, I'm going with the grain. And then I'll come from the top. That's nice and smooth right there. There we go. So I'm checking it with my finger like that. I just find when I'm going this way, I can't feel the undulations as well as when I feel in that way. Now here I'm on end grain, so it's really good to use a low angle block plane. And because of that curve, I'm going with the grain in this direction. But then if I keep going, I'm going to be cutting into the teeth of the grain. So I want to come from each end and stop somewhere in the middle. This is just to spare a smooth curve to support the router. In a second here. All right, that's that. So once I've got that, I would do both of them. That's enough. But I just wanted to show you this other board. Let's see, which side should we pick for this? We've got, that looks like a nice marbled surface. And then that is also, this almost looks like a stain. I guess it's on both sides. They're both good, but maybe this is the winner. What we're going to do now is we're going to add a tremendous amount of value in just an instant. We're going to put a hole in this, and you won't believe the perceived added value by drilling a hole in it. That's all we're doing. I have a Forstner bit already in the drill press, and it's an 1 3/4 Forstner bit. Now, you can use an inch to about, I would say 1 3/4. Some I've seen have even larger holes in them, but they act as like a great place for your thumb to roll in. So I like to keep it in from the corner, so we can actually take, this is kind of on the borderline punky. So we're going to get into this right here, and we'll put that hole like right in here somewhere, okay? I want to leave enough meat here and enough over here. So I'm probably going to center it right about there. And then on this one, I've got that check coming in on this side, so I'm going to put it over toward this area, but I'm going to have it off center and kind of over here. This one will be a little closer to the edge. All right, so I'm going to head over to the drill press and add some value. All right, so I'm going to sight it and get it kind of looking good. See that nice 1 3/4 bit in there? That looks good right there. All right, one more. All right. How about that? All right, let's go back to the bench. All right, so what I'm going to do is get this on the table here, and I'm going to route a little shape to this. So here I can use my hold fast, and let me show you the bit I got set up. Okay, I'm using the old Festool plunge, and I've got a 1/2 inch round over bit in there. Okay, any 1/2 inch will work. This red one, I think it's a Freud. It's a 1/2 inch cutter, but I'm not plunging all the way to use the full radius. That would look dumb. I don't like a round over that gets soft at the top. Well, you want to leave a little bit of an edge. So we're just using about half the depth of this. I'm trying to tell you how much it's cutting, but let me see. I'll just measure off the bearing. I'm coming from the side. I'm going to hit the bearing, and it's just about 5/32. So a little over 1/4 of an inch is what it's actually cutting. So the bearing is riding almost in the middle. That's how much I'm taking off, okay? So because I'm set shallow, the router bit is not even hitting the table here. So I can go right around and not worry about hitting the table. And I'll just have to reposition once. And I'm also going to route around the hole here. Be good if I tighten that down with the old hold fast. That's nice. All right, let's get the gear on. We're going to do a little round over here. I was mostly climb cutting there. I'm holding the router. As I look down at the router, the bit is spinning clockwise. So I'm thinking of the bit as a cutting tool, just like the hand plane, where I was careful about going into the grain. In some places, no matter what I do, that bit is always going to be spinning clockwise. So as I come into this grain, let's see, like when I'm coming this way, here's the grain. So that bit is going to be cutting into the grain in this section here. And then I'll be fine with it here. So if you, rather than pulling into it, if you sneak up and go the reverse direction, you'll get a smoother cut on sections where you're cutting into the grain. Now you can't always do that, because if you're using a bit that's taking a stronger bite, the way you really want to use a router for the most control is pulling against the spin. So you would, for the most safety, you would actually pull toward you so the cutter is hitting the workpiece and you're pulling against it. Because when you are taking more of a bite, it wants to run off and run away from you, and you lose control. But because I'm taking such a shallow cut here, it's just a light little trim, I was able to climb cut the whole way. So going with the spin of the cutter and get a much better, cleaner result. So I'm going to clean it up anyway, but that looks sweet, huh? See how that radius, it's only partial. It's not the full ½ inch. So I'm using the soft radius of a ½ inch round over to just go, you know, halfway. I'm not even all the way halfway. There's a flat in the middle still here of probably 3/16 wide. But because it's such a soft radius, I'm able to now blend that radius so it appears to continue in a soft little round over there. Now, I can just, a lot of times I'll just card scrape this where there's a flat there. I'm going to pull it toward me. Or, this stuff's pretty agreeable right now. It's not soft wood, but it's a little softer than you'd expect hard maple to be. So I'm going to use this fine file that I showed you. We'll make a link to this at the end, but I'm going to use this just to clean this up. So I'm just going to get most of the tool marks off there. And if I need to card scrape, I will. But I discovered this is pretty friendly to sanding. I'm going to get my 150 grit. So here's my 150. If you don't have the rubber cushiony pad, you're going to use the cushiony pad of your palm. And that's helping to soften and take away that flat and leave me with a nice soft radius that has a defined edge. So holding that right in my hand there. 150 is good for this.
Did you call that pillowing?
It's sort of pillowing the edge. It's not quite as subtle as a lot of the pillowing. It's just like a partial radius using the partial 150 grit. But yeah, it is similar. It is like pillowing the edge. That's the result, isn't it? It's a little stronger than most of the pillowing I do on a leg, but I love it. I mean, it changes the whole texture of this thing. So I would do the same thing to all four sides. And then the hole, I would take that fine. This is really great. These rasps have a fine tooth right there. And it sands out because of how fine it is on this side. It's coarse over here. It sands out really easily. It's one of the best files for detailing. So I got a little burn in there, but that gets taken off pretty quickly. So here's some end grain here. So I gotta get over here. So you want to get this nice and smooth so it looks just like the exterior. And depending on what kind of wood you're using, it's not too bad. Once I've filed the whole thing, I'd go to the 150 again. And where it's end grain, it's okay to work across the grain here. I'm going to finish with the grain. But if there was a sanding tool that would go in there, like, I wouldn't use one of those drums because they're flat and they're going to kind of fight you from keeping the pillowed kind of radius there. So I just use, it's not that far to go to do this. It doesn't take that long. It probably take you 5 minutes, 10 minutes per. But that's what you want to get it to. And then I would go with the 150. I'm sorry, the 220. And this is where it's not been done yet, so I still have a flat. But I can feel the nice radius right there. What's great about this is just how nice of a thumb hold it is. So I went in. I'm leaving some material about 1.5 inches. Yeah, wow, I have exactly 1.5 inches each direction here. And that hole is, again, 1.75 inches. You could get one, you could go smaller than that if you like, but it's going to be a little harder to clean up. It almost looks better. It does look a lot like an artist's palette, right? So with that material, it's a striking kind of effect. Now, this was already hand planed, so once I get all my edges detailed to 220, then I'm going to come into my, I've got 220 on here as well. I would just hit it here. The edges here, let's see, this one I did earlier. I just was showing you the 150. After I hit it with the 150 grit here, I then go to 220 and I use it on this soft cushiony palm sander. So this is a gentle kind of random orbit. It's not an orbit, it's just oscillating. So it has like a pretty light action there. I forgot to make the holes for the dust. And so I'll use that to just create that final. And it finishes it off really nicely. It just continues and finalizes that soft radius that we're looking for. And then lastly, I'd come with 320, moving from 220 off that, and finish it up. Now I'm sanding so I see it nice and clear. I'm not going to see any kind of haze or whiteness. Especially the end grain you want to pay attention to. But that's where this oscillating really helps a lot, getting that squishiness down in there. But you'll find that it goes pretty well. I mean, that's perfect right there, and I didn't spend a lot of time on that edge. Once I've used the orbital over here and got it to 220, I'm going to final sand the surfaces with 320, and this takes out any of the orbital marks going with the grain. And once I've done that, the last thing I need to do is lightly break the edges. So I'm just going to overhang it, and using that 320 grit, this won't cut the edges too much. I'm cutting kind of diagonally, and I'm softening these edges. I don't want to kill the edge. I still want the definition of it, but I want it to feel inviting and warm to the hand there. So same thing on the end. And you go all around like that, and then you'd have to do the same in that little cutout hole, except I'm holding it at a 45. I don't want to scratch the surface, but you want to soften that so it's much friendlier to the touch. All right? And then you'll have a finished board. And these little points out here, you want to blunt those as well. Anywhere you've finished with that type of edginess, you want to. So you have a question?
Yeah, Rod is curious if 320 makes it more difficult for the finish to absorb.
No, it's not. I'm removing the scratches. The grit doesn't inhibit an oil-based finish. Usually when they tell you to stop at a certain grit, it's because they want, like, if you're using a pigmented stain, it needs something on the surface to grab and hold on to. If you're using a dye stain, it doesn't matter. It's a long story, but I'm going to use I'm actually going to use a tung oil finish on this because I want a little more protection than just going flat mineral oil. And I want to add the beauty. Once all of the thinner evaporates and hardens, it's a food-safe finish. It's not going to inhibit at all in this case because I'm using an oil varnish which is going to soak right in. I'm not staining it or anything. I don't need any teeth on the surface to hold the pigmented stain or the varnish or anything like that. This is an oil finish that works fine. So here we go. I'm going to bring out a couple that I finished earlier, and these are all sanded, ready for finish. So we'll get the reward of this. So check it out. I got my smaller one. And those edges are all nicely done. Everything's soft and good. Look at that, a little bark inclusion. I'm going to leave that. This is from the same tree. This is the next one in the line. So look at that nice holder. This one's got a little bark inclusion as well, but pretty sweet, huh? All right, so here we go. I'm going to get the gloves on. Let's get some of the dust off. Now, this being spalted and it's a little drier, it's a little different than the texture of it is slightly softer, as I said earlier, than regular maple. So it's going to absorb the finish probably more than usual.
Tom,
so I'm just going to pour a little on.
While you're doing this, Steve's asking, is there any other wood that spalts like maple?
I have seen cherry to spalt a little. Someone else is going to have to answer that. You know, I haven't seen. There are other woods, but I'm honestly I don't know what they are. I've seen others. But that's an excellent question. Maple's probably the most famous for it. Okay, there we go. I'm letting it kind of, I'm just going to move it around now. Yeah, that's soaking in. This is going to be nicely protective. Gosh, that looks like marbly.
Making us all hungry.
Look how much that soaked up. This isn't going to finish with the beauty, but look at the, when you get the last coats on, it'll stay and you'll have this awesome like color on there. You'll see the marbling so beautifully. It's got a little of a graying here and there, but once this seals nicely, it'll be just spectacular. Like it's drying so fast that we're losing the fullness of the effect. Man, it is sucking it up. So this is good to use, and I want to get an ample coat on this first one.
Folks are saying birch is similar.
Okay.
Walnut
awesome.
will spalt.
Really? I've never
Hickory,
seen
sycamore.
That's awesome. I never saw, well, the walnut would be harder to see the spalting, but what was the other one? Birch?
Birch, walnut.
That's awesome. Wow, look at that. This side I think I like even more. It's got that cool little thing going on there. Are you seeing a reflection?
Spalted alder.
Come around this side. Like if you shoot right from here, this angle right here.
Okay, I'm trying. Sorry.
Sorry,
Tripping over.
I didn't see you tripping. All right, so this, look at that beautiful color. You seen it now without reflection?
Todd's even saying he's seen oak spalt.
Really? Oh yeah, I did have some oak spalt too. It has to get like in the right conditions, humidity, the weather. Wow, look at the spalting even along the edge.
Steve Stewart's asking how long before it seals.
Well, this first coat, I would put more on and let it really soak in. And I'm going to give that first coat a good 24 hours to dry, just because I've got, you're going to kind of load the wood. The next coat, you'll use very little hardly compared. I don't want to put too much in, but...
And how many coats will you do in the end?
I'll probably only do maybe 2 or 3. I don't really want to build it. I want it to still feel like the wood. So it's really up to you. But I would do at least 2 of this Waterlocks.
Is tung oil okay to use?
Yeah.
Steve's asking?
Yeah. In fact, if you read Bob Flexner's book on understanding wood finishing, he says, this whole thing about food safe finishes, his argument is that almost all finishes are food safe once the VOCs have gone out and it's reached full properties. It's basically, it goes to solid and it leaves the resin only, which is relatively inert. So tung oil is from the tung nut. So it's actually a natural kind of resin, and it's that smell, the VOCs, the thinner, that is the poisonous part of it. And once that evaporates out and it reaches full properties, you're left with just the very natural tung oil resin, which is food safe. And it's much more protective than, like, say, just going with mineral oil.
Michael's asking if you found a similar oil wipe or finish that is not as dark as Waterlocks.
Well, if we had just used, you can just use mineral oil. So that'll leave like a drier coat on this. I want to bring out the maximum punch. Like when you get that final finish, it's going to look stunning. I mean, look at that thing. This has a lot of darker figure to it. So you can see we've got 2 that are fairly similar. But that thumb hole, I'm telling you, it makes all the difference. It looks like an artist's palette. So look at that, how fast you can make one of these. I mean, you literally could do it in an hour. Once you got the material plain, you're just going to bandsaw it out, slightly radius the corner, drill a hole, sand it up, and you have an amazing gift. This is totally freeform, obviously. You can make them however you want. You can be more angular if you want. Some of them, just Google images of charcuterie boards, and you will see the most amazing variation. There's so many options. But this is what worked for the pieces I had and the kind of shape I wanted to go with for these. So, well, I hope this got you excited and helped you with some ideas on the way to make a simple gift with a lot of effect. The charcuterie boards and cheese boards, the ultimate gift. So if you enjoy this content, subscribe. It's a low entry. You just mash that subscribe button, and please like and share and hit that bell. I don't know, what does that bell do?
The bell allows you to be notified when we release notes or a video, or it's just a notifications.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again in the shop for this fun project. I look forward to seeing you next time for Shop Night Live.
Awesome.
Good night.
Stay well, everybody. I really appreciate you.